What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Friday Slate edition. Adam Kaufman and a couple of new faces as compared to the two that we had yesterday anyway. Matt LaMarca, Jeff Ulrich. Of course, if you are a regular viewer of this show or even the Sweat in the mornings, you know these two quite well. Guys, it's good to see you. You're ready for round two of the draft?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Great.
ready. Interesting day one. It felt like there was a month of just rumors building, and then everything came crashing back to reality the hours before the draft started. CJ Stroud was back to being the number 2 quarterback. Will Anderson was back to being the top defensive prospect. Everything that we thought might have been like a little bit of an edge from following the news, it all just ended up being nothing.
How did that shit, without getting into specifics, obviously, because I don't even know how invested you were in terms of having a lot of bets in a lot of different places, or if the draft isn't something that you generally like to bet to begin with because you like to stick to game action. I don't know what your individual preferences are, but in terms of the way things did bounce around, like you said, in the weeks leading up to the draft as compared to where we actually landed, was that favorable for you or was that a bad thing?
Well, I can't bet on the draft as a New Yorker, unfortunately. It's just not a market that is available in New York State. But I think it's a good sort of reminder as to how you should be betting the NFL draft, right? Like, once the rumors started circulating that Will Levis was going to go number 2, there was even a rumor he was going to go number 1. That was then your opportunity to buy back in on guys like CJ Stroud, right? So if you're doing things properly, based on the way these lines move so drastically, I mean, Stroud went from literally like plus 600 on Wednesday to something like minus 2,000 before he was actually taken, as far as odds to be the number 2 pick. So like, if you're playing things smart, you can end up with multiple tickets on different players to go in certain spots, right?
And that was 2 hours. That was like an hour before the draft started, Lamarck. He went from like plus 400 down to minus 2,000. So just, yeah. And that was, again, like it didn't happen like a week before the draft, happened like right before the draft. So my strategy, I was fine because I had a couple nice bets on things that did ended up working out. Bijan going top 10, Darnell Wright going to the Bears. That saved me, but I got lots of stuff wrong too. I had Levis at second money, and luckily, like I hedged it, and I was smart when Stroud bumped up to like plus 1,000 to go number 2. I hedged it a little bit and took some Stroud number 2, and it kind of saved me there. But I missed on JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba to go to the Packers. I followed the news there, and it didn't work out. The Packers continue to just draft how they draft. They don't draft wide receivers early. The news was just, it was BS. I mean, the Packers aren't going to do that ever. So, yeah, it's Matt brings up the perfect point. And this is how I'm going to even take this approach more next year. As soon as you start to see odds going one way, going up to the draft, your best idea is to zag the other way and look for just spray the board. You don't need all your long shot picks to work out, but once the odds start to move on top players, take a couple shots for sure.
Is there kind of a, obviously in this individual case, the answer is yes, but generally speaking, is there a cautionary tale in terms of, of what you put credence in terms of what like surfaces on Reddit and, obviously because you talked about Will Levis, who, Moose, like you had him at 2, maybe it was second round is what you meant to bet because he's still out there. The guy didn't go, never mind number 1 or number 2. He didn't go in the entire first round. The poor guy just sitting there in the green room with the cameras on him the entire time. So now we're going to find out obviously where he goes and we can get to that. But in terms of like what we're willing to believe, on the depths of the internet, it shows, the line movement was absurd in a span of just 12, 24 hours.
The thing is, it's not just sales agreeable 24-48 that got it wrong. Like a lot of people, it's not just the random Reddit poster. Like, look, if you were betting the Reddit poster and going Will Levis to go number 1 after that, I don't really have any. There's no saving you. Like, honestly, if you're gonna follow random Reddit posters, there's probably really, you may just want to stop betting, to be honest. But like a lot of people got it wrong. There was legitimate people out there who thought Levis was going second, and maybe he was. But I think that just goes down to the bigger point. Nobody knows anything. Like
Yes.
nobody
Did you
really
hear what
owns
you
it.
heard in Houston was that D'Amico Ryans really wanted to take a defensive player at number 2. And the owner said that we're taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
And I almost wonder if CJ Stroud was kind of a compromise between the two sides, right?
I think that's exactly what happened.
Fine. I'll take your quarterback, but I want my guy. I'd much rather have CJ Stroud than Will Levis.
And to that point, Matt, look at how much draft capital they spent to go back up and get the defensive guy. That is a weight. That's an inordinate. That was a heavily.
Yeah. In terms of like the draft capital trade chart, they gave up the equivalent of the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
So Houston, definitely there was some inner turmoil there. And I think that what they did to compromise is they made a bad trade. And you know what? I don't hate it. It keeps both sides happy. At least you got 2 stud players out of it, but it's a lot of draft capital. And clearly there was some indecision there. And that's the way they tried to smooth things out.
How do you think this Will Levis thing shakes out? I assume we will see him drafted tonight at some point.
Yeah, I think he ultimately probably goes off the board in the top half of round number 2. You started to hear some rumblings about a toe injury that some teams might be worried about. Personally, I think if not for all of the rumors and stuff that happened, the month leading up to the draft, it wouldn't necessarily even be that weird that Will Levis ends up being a 2nd-round pick.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I do think that there are still plenty of teams out there that need a quarterback. The Patriots are a team that has been linked to him. I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe they get involved. The Titans are a team that has been linked to them.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those teams pick, towards the top half of the 2nd round. So I think somebody ultimately will roll the dice on him at that point.
Right now, the Titans favorite at plus 200, Rams second at plus 400. Rams would make a lot of sense. I don't know how many more miles Matthew Stafford has left. And,
Well, and Titans picking at 41. Of course, we begin at 32 with Pittsburgh. The Patriots, who you guys mentioned, one thing that's been floating around in terms of national rumblings after the Pats did trade back, still got their guy in Gonzalez, the defensive back, but we're able to get a free 4th rounder in the process, basically. So they have 4 4th rounders. So there are people wondering if they're going to ultimately trade up, maybe get a second round pick, which is where the Levis thing becomes maybe a little bit more fascinating. 46 is where the Patriots are slated to pick right now. Maybe Will Levis, guys, Lamarck, I really direct this specifically to you. Maybe Will Levis just has a little bit of that Bo Callahan thing. Maybe nobody went to his birthday party. Maybe he's not well liked.
If there's anyone I can count on throwing into a Kevin Costner movie reference, it's going to be you. Yeah, listen, the Levis thing, it was weird. I don't know if it was just people were pulling the rug over our eyes for a full month, but I really think the Texans, if the draft was last week, might have taken him at number 2. So we'll never know. I mean, that's why this is such a tough market to bet, and why you should always be looking to just grab long odds basically whenever possible, right? I don't think anybody expected that Dalton Kincaid was going to be on the board at pick 25 when the Bills ultimately traded up to get him. But, that was a team that you could bet as his landing spot, and you got pretty good odds on it. And when you look back at it, it makes perfect sense. They don't necessarily have a stud tight end, but they have everything else. So, you should always be looking for long shot odds and just trying to, then take arbitrage whenever you can.
Yeah.
I do want you to know, Lamarck, I was doing an interview yesterday leading into the draft, and the first question out of the gate from the hosts, I won't name them, was, what do you think Bill Belichick, or what do you think the Patriots are going to do tonight? And I said, I just hope that no matter what, Sonny Weaver leaves with Vontae Mack. And there was just silence, just crickets. For a split second, I've never felt more alone than in that very moment. Turns out they'd never even seen Draft Day, which I feel
really
like is irresponsible if you work in sports.
Terrible movie.
I didn't say it's a good movie. I just feel like it's a necessity to have, if you work in sports, you got to at least seen Draft Day. Moose, what are you watching for tonight? What is your top priority this evening in rounds 2 and 3?
I mean, obviously the
other than Will Levis.
Yeah, the Will Levis thing is interesting, but I mean, Hendon Hooker's still on the board too. Project quarterback, coming off an ACL tear, but there's been some pretty high grades on him. I know I kind of liked him. I mean, I did a little piece on him actually earlier in the season, and I mean, he seems to have quite a bit of upside. I mean, it's a player who's playing in one of the best programs of the country, and I mean, I feel like if it was a little less of a deep quarterback pool, maybe he would have gone in the first round, maybe even been like a top 10 pick. So pretty interested to see there, but there's Michael Mayer, who is also the consensus tight end 1, is still on the board. Was mocked by most people to go in the first round to like a Dallas or a Detroit. Detroit's now the favorite at plus 150, but there's a ton of teams who could move up to get him. Cowboys are plus 900. So that's pretty interesting. And then there's the running backs are always interesting for fantasy and like best ball purposes. There's a lot of interesting, and maybe the running back pool isn't like super deep, but there's definitely some interesting prospects in the back half of this draft that I think could really, if they fall to the right spot. Chase Brown's a guy who I just wrote up last week as well. He's got a little bit of like that Jerick McKinnon, like kind of just metric, just fantastic combine. He could be interesting. There's a couple other names too. But just looking really for the high end athletes is what I like to do and see where they all land. A lot of good tight ends too. Sam Laporta, really.
Yeah, that was what I was going to lean on, Jeff. This has kind of been billed as the greatest tight end class in history, and we only saw one come off the board in round 1. I think we could see 4, maybe even 5 tight ends in the second round.
That's what I was just going to ask you.
And it's going to be interesting to see how these guys are valued in fantasy leagues, both redraft and dynasty. Like we have seen time and time again, the tight end is just a really hard position to make an impact in as a rookie. Kyle Pitts, maybe the greatest tight end prospect that has ever lived, at least if you believed all the Twitter hype before he got drafted. We're still waiting for him to break out heading into year 3.
He's not a tight end. He's a receiver. He's the best receiver in the draft.
Too. I mean, the hype hasn't stopped on Kyle Pitts. It's like...
So my advice is, especially since there's so much depth at the position, like I would not really be prioritizing any of these guys in my rookie drafts, right? Unless I played in something like a tight end premium league where you're getting, like 1.5 per catch, but it's just a really hard position to count on a rookie to deliver. And typically you're going to have to wait more than 1 year.
I would say Kincaid. It's funny because Dalton Kincaid is probably, to me, has the best chance of, he's just such a pure pass catcher. If you've seen him play or the tape, he might be the best pure receiver in the entire draft, but he didn't really go to the right spot. So, like you said, everyone else to me, I'm on board the same way. You can't, it's a rookie tight ends, probably not going to produce how you think. So interesting to see where they go, but definitely, not a top priority in those kind of fantasy leagues.
It's funny you say that because when I was watching last night, and this is ESPN's coverage, obviously, when Kincaid was drafted, they were all excited about it. Like, yeah, he's a tight end, but man, just use him as a slot receiver. Put him right in the slot. Put him along with
the Bills
and
certainly
Davis and everybody else.
Have a need for that. They have the outside threats with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. They have an inline tight end with Dalton Knox. Like if you can just play Kincaid, you give him 50% of the snaps and you put him almost exclusively in the slot, he could be a productive player. I think that asking too much of rookie tight ends, because it is a position where you have to learn a ton, unless they are going to say, you're not going to play tight end this year. You're just going to be a pass catcher. He's going to have to learn blocking schemes and routes and all sorts of different things in adjustment to the, uptick in competition.
I was really interested in sort of how the first round played out in general. Never mind, Levis not getting picked and all the draft movement and odds and all of that. And obviously the trades were substantial as already highlighted, but just positionally speaking, you get the quarterbacks where you get the quarterbacks, but to have a couple of running backs go early just sort of feels like teams never learn. You do two running backs in the top, what, like 10, 11 picks. You didn't have a single wide receiver. We hear about the depth of wide receiver in this draft. You don't have a single wide out go until the 20th pick. And then you have, 4 or 5 in a row. Like you said, the one tight end, again, the depth of tight end in this draft, one tight end in the first round, probably do get 4 or 5 going second round, but even still, just the movement or sort of the run positionally that we have seen so far, very early on, just the one round deep. I've just found it weird, Jeff. It's been one of the stranger drafts we've had in years.
It's strange, and again, it's a good reminder that NFL teams are going to NFL team.
Yeah, we don't know anything.
It's not even that, but I just think that like we want to think that we can decipher, like the Lions are the perfect example. Oh, the Lions traded away a cornerback. Oh, the Lions had a cornerback, one of the top rated cornerbacks, dropped to them at 12. Of course they're going to take Christian Gonzalez. The Lions were hell-bent on leaving the first round with Jamar Gibbs, and nobody had a clue that
was your Sonny Weaver moment. They really had Jamar Gibbs no matter what in their pocket that night.
Wow. I mean, on another topic, there's no team that I've changed my opinion about more over.
Well, meanwhile, weren't there just today, like in the last couple hours, DeAndre Swift, trade rumors, like the Lions are listening now because they've, taken a new tight end or a new running back, pardon me.
You're not going to get in the thing. You're not going to get what you should get for him. I mean, his value's not there. So, and I mean, like when you look at the Lions, what did they do in the offseason? They signed a running back in Montgomery, and they signed a linebacker, and then they traded a quarterback. And then in their draft, which they performed beautifully in terms of getting value, they traded back. They let the players fall to them. They don't address what they need, and then they just draft the same positions. It just, I'm sorry, like I'm not a talent evaluator, and certainly Jamar Gibbs could be out of this world, and maybe he is the correct pick, but like it makes no sense to me from a value perspective, from a positional perspective. You could say they're drafting for upside, I guess, but to me, the Lions blew it. I think that the Lions were a good draft away from being a real Super Bowl contender, and I think they kind of blew it.
All right,
I'm with you. Go ahead. It just, when you put it that way, this team not only paid a running back in free agency, they then used a first round pick on the position. Like it is just kind of mind boggling. To put it that way. I will say, I'm not surprised that the Falcons took Bijan. We've talked about it, Jeff. We kind of had that as a landing spot for him. And you know what? Like, I don't hate it, to be 100% honest with you. You can tell me that the positional value is terrible. I fully agree with that. But this is a team that runs the ball at like an astronomical rate.
Yeah.
They have a young quarterback that they're trying to put as little pressure on as possible. And now with Bijan and Kyle Pitts and Drake London, like that's a lot of offensive talent there in Atlanta. So I think that the bigger mistake that teams make with running backs is getting suckered into paying them the second contract, right? Like I think Bijan Robinson could give the Falcons some really good production for his first 4 or 5 years. The problem is that you then are going to pay him a big chunk of money to come back and decline. So I think Bijan is firmly in first round fantasy draft status at this point, like redraft leagues, not rookie leagues. I think you can legitimately use a first round pick on him.
I agree. I agree 100%. I'm not frozen again and no one can hear me, but
no, we can hear you.
You can hear me. I'll just finish.
Your head's not bobbing around.
I'll finish my thought as I've frozen to the left. I'm not having a stroke, but yeah, I agree 100%. Like I think Atlanta and the way their offense is set up makes sense. Like they can still address the defense. I just feel like Detroit had such a good opportunity to just, round out their defense. They already had a top 5 offense. And I'm not necessarily against drafting running backs in the first round either. I think you just treat them like rookie quarterbacks. But anyways.
Jeff, blink if you're okay.
He's blinking.
Sorry, he left. He left. No, we'll get Jeff back. Don't worry about that. All right. Well, we've done a fair amount of NFL draft stuff. Obviously, we could continue, but we only have about 15 more minutes to work with before Madden simulations come your way. So I do want to make sure we mix in NBA and NHL playoffs. Since you are sitting here, Lamarca, let's start NBA. We got just the 2 games tonight, both Western Conference. Warriors, fairly comfortable favorites, 7.5 at home against the Kings. The Lakers, the later game, 5-point favorites against the Grizzlies. These 2 series, for anyone who's not been paying attention, sitting at 3-2 in favor of Golden State and LA. I do believe, and I believed going into these series, that these were the 2 teams that were going to come out of them and clash, down the road here. So we will find out, obviously. What are your expectations for tonight, both just in terms of what you think will happen, but also what you think makes sense from a betting perspective?
Yeah, I'm laying the points with both of the favorites. I prefer the Warriors. They're my favorite side of the bunch. I think that this series has been super competitive, but in game 5, we saw the Warriors, championship DNA really come out. Like, that was a game that could have very well gone either direction, but the Warriors have been here so many times that they just know how to get the job done. And now that they're up 3-2 and going back to home, I think they're pretty firmly going to just drop the hammer on Sacramento. It was a great year for the Kings. Even if they get blown out tonight, they made a lot of really positive steps, and I think they'll be back. I don't think that this is necessarily a fluke. They have some things that they have to address for sure, but the Warriors, with Andrew Wiggins now back and playing really well, plus Steph Curry still doing Steph Curry things, I think they should win this game by double digits.
Are you, I know you said you're laying the points. Are you intrigued by any particular player props, or are you just, sticking with some of the main lines here?
My one prop for this game that I highlighted today was over 1.5 3-pointers for Andrew Wiggins. It was juiced up to, I want to say it was like minus 160. So it's not the most appealing line that you'll find, but Wiggins had another career year from 3-point range. He shot just under 40%. He was actually slightly above 40% when playing in Golden State. He has at least 2 3-pointers in 3 of his 4 postseason starts. I just think that this number is a little bit too low. So I don't normally like paying, premium juice for a prop, but I think that this is a good one to consider.
The just in terms of where the money is and the handle, for that matter, if anybody is wondering, and it wouldn't surprise you at all, it's right in line with what we've been talking about. I will say, not as many people are as have the same conviction as Lamarca in terms of laying the points. That's pretty much a 50-50 proposition in terms of where the money is at right now. But the handle, and this is why these 2 teams are both comfortable favorites on the money line. The handle is both 70-75% in favor of the Warriors and the Lakers, and right in that same range in terms of the percentage of a bet as well. So it's what everybody, it's people are feeding into, as you acknowledged, championship experience, which certainly the Lakers have in not too distant memory, and LeBron has loads of, and the Warriors, they did what they did last year, as people remember. I do want to mix in too. Eastern Conference, just in terms of, and we can pull up, let me see. We'll, here on the DraftKings Sportsbook, we'll take a look at what some of the futures look like at the moment, because I just think the East, to me, I mean, there's a whole sort of lack of clarity in general across the NBA, because no team has been dominant so far in this postseason. Do the Celtics, to you, at plus 145, now that they've closed out the Hawks, made life a little tougher on themselves than they needed to, but they have the Sixers left or next with Joel Embiid playing on one leg. Do the Celtics deserve to be the really overwhelming title favorites that they are right now at plus 145?
I've said that the Celtics are overpriced all year, and certainly losing Milwaukee from the East makes their road a lot easier. But no, I would not be betting them at plus 145. Are they the team that's most likely to make it to the finals at this point? Yes, because, the West, you still have, a bunch of teams that could conceivably make it to the finals. In the East, whoever wins between the Celtics and the 76ers is going to be a pretty significant favorite over whoever wins between the Heat and the Knicks. But I don't think the 76ers are just going to roll over and die against Boston, right? And you say no team has been impressive during the postseason, but I mean, Philly did just sweep Brooklyn, right? They've been resting
Yeah, but
up.
I guess I just don't think very highly of Brooklyn.
I get it, but would you have thought very highly of the Hawks before that series? And it took
No, but I still don't. I think the Celtics didn't play well in that series, and that's why it went as long as it did.
That's what I'm saying, Kaufman. That's the point. You can only play who's in front of you, and Philly came out and they did what they had to do. Right? And they have the presumed MVP in Joel Embiid. I was very unimpressed, in particular with Jason Tatum's play versus the Hawks.
Yeah.
I think that this series could go both ways. I expect the Celtics to win, but the Celtics being minus 310 to win this series feels heavy to me.
Seems ridiculously short, doesn't it? I mean, I don't, again, not the basketball guy here, but minus 310 against Philly.
No, it's a ridiculous number, but I think it comes in part from people wondering if Embiid, how much of the series he's even going to be able to play in, let alone how effective he is when he's actually out there. Like, to me, the bet and the more reasonable bet, because it's, I don't know, I could look it up, minus 140, minus 150, something like that, is Celtics minus 1.5. Figure the series, at worst goes 6 games, Celtics come out of it. That to me is the bet. If you're looking to, actually have a chance of making any money, it's not just putting money on the Celtics on the money line. That's silly.
Got it. So if you want to win money, don't listen to anything that other guy just said. Just bet the Celtics minus 1.5 games.
What I am wondering is your view of your beloved Knicks and the Heat, because I guess I think I'm in the minority in this category. I was a little surprised that Heat were dogs in the first place, and they're sitting at plus 130 to win the series. I know they're banged up. There's no Tyler Hero, blah, blah, blah. I didn't think the Knicks looked all that good against Cleveland. I thought the Cavs looked absolutely terrible in that series.
They won all 4 of those games by 20 points. I think that the Heat, there's a lot of, Jimmy Butler is Himmy Butler, right? There's just so much positive vibes going on right now with the Heat. But those last 2 games, those were Bucks collapses more than anything else. And no disrespect to Jimmy Butler. He went out and he took the wins. Specifically in game 4. In game 5, that miraculous alley-oop to force it to overtime was, I would say, more luck than anything else. But you know what? It went in. Sure. And in that game 5, the Milwaukee Bucks had 2 made field goals in the final 11 minutes and change. That is awful. And I think that, Coach Bud's got to go. There needs to be some changes, right? Milwaukee, I know that they have that one title, but their whole thing of we're just going to keep running it back and hoping for different results every year. I think the time has come where they have to make some sort of change. So I think a lot broke right for the Heat in that series, including Giannis missing, basically 3 full games to start things. And I thought that the Knicks pretty thoroughly dismantled the Cavaliers in a series where I expected Cleveland to win. And they did it without getting really any production from Julius Randle. So I would say that you could add the Knicks to the list of teams that have been impressive so far during the postseason. And I think that, this number, this just smells trap, right? Who doesn't want to take the Heat as underdogs after what I already just did? So to me, this smells like a trap. I'll take the Knicks.
Yeah, I've already put money on the Heat.
I'm jumping on board. Knicks bandwagon right here too. I love
it. Let's switch to hockey in the 5-6 minutes we got left here, Moose. You got 4 games tonight, all potential clinchers, obviously. The Bruins, the Hurricanes, the Stars, and the Kraken all looking to advance out of round 1 here. What are your expectations tonight?
Yeah, man. Kraken knock off the defending champs. Amazing. Oh my God. Did I freeze again?
Yeah.
Yeah. What? And the best part is you froze while scratching your face.
Yes. Amazing. I'm just going to keep talking. Just don't let me on screen.
Please do.
I think the Kraken get it done tonight. Plus 135. The Avalanche to me are just, thank you for getting me off the screen. The Avalanche to me are a team that they just feel like they're kind of just ready to take a break. It's a lot of hockey. They won last year. They've been up and down all season. Their goaltenders played a lot. And the Kraken are they're a solid team. They're fun. They've got depth scoring. I think they get it done. I think that's a fair number. I also think Dallas gets it done. Dallas is just the better team in this series. They got higher end scoring. Minus 110. All about that. I think you can look to Tyler Seguin's props again. I haven't checked his shot on goal props yet. I don't know if they've come up, but basically Joe Pavelski's out. They've upgraded Seguin to the top line. Yeah, minus 130 to go over 2.5 shots on goal. He's been over 2.5 shots on goal, I believe, in 4 straight games. His goal scorer prop is fine as well, plus 195. Basically, Tyler Seguin at one point was one of the top, like almost MVP candidate almost every season. He moved into more of a two-way role because of all the depth that they had, and now he's back in a top-line role, but he's being priced like he's still like a two-way player. You're still getting really good player props on all the Tyler Seguin props right now, and until Pavelski comes back, I would just keep hammering them. So over 2.5 shots, anytime goal to score a point, I would just keep playing the Tyler Seguin props. I think that's a good move for tonight. The Eastern Conference game, I don't know what. The Panthers are just such a Jekyll and Hyde team that I don't really know what to do. If I was betting that game, I would definitely just take them on the money line. They're plus 160, but I have no idea which Sergei Bobrovsky is going to show up tonight, the guy who stopped 44 shots in the last game or the guy who lets in 5 goals on 18 shots. I'm just staying away. I would, if it forced me to choose, I'd just take the plus money, but I don't know. It's going to be an interesting game for sure. And I think there's some value in taking the Islanders. I think that the Islanders have the Hurricanes in a tough spot. Hurricanes are banged up. They got the better goalie and Sorokin. They're at home. I don't mind taking the favorite there.
I always like looking at the betting splits. I just find it interesting to see what the public and the sharps are thinking, obviously. But the Bruins are minus 1.5 on the goal line, obviously. But 94% of the handle, 81% of the money on the Bruins minus 1.5. Never mind just like the money line at minus 190. But for them to not only win, Jeff, but win convincingly. Given the way that I know that's happened, but multiple goal wins by the Bruins a few times in this series, but the last game was very competitive. A couple of games in this series have been very competitive.
It's all about the number, right? I mean, if you're just a Joe public bettor and I say you can have the money line at minus 190 or you can have minus 1.5 goals at plus 135.
Sure.
They're going to take the plus number. It's just, it's all about that. I don't think that it's necessarily all that surprising that the public is willing to get plus 135 for the Bruins to win by 2 goals.
That's fair.
Shout out to the Devils, by the way. Way to come back and make me eat my words.
I went on the NHL Network and picked the Devils as my favorite team most likely to advance in round 1. And they got let in 10 goals in the first 2 games. I thought I was going to get fired. Now they're back. I'm looking good again.
You're celebrated. You're a hero there now.
Get Jeff back on for round 2, baby. NHL Network. Bring this man back.
I really like the Devils, though. They're a solid team. They got a lot of talent up and down. I do hope they take care of it. It'd be awesome.
Do you while we've got I guess we've only got a few seconds, so I won't worry about
Cody
it.
is going to start screaming as soon as we hit the
I know.
30 seconds.
Cody is more he keeps us in check more maybe than some of our other technical directors. It lets us get a little loosey-goosey. Eamon, our producer, of course, behind the scenes, helping us guide on through, and Moose and Lamarca, Kaufman, Cody, all of us here. We appreciate all of you. Thank you for being with us. Enjoy the weekend, and happy betting, folks. We'll